Hello, everybody. It's Ruby Zimmerman, class of 2020 during the pandemic, never graduated, but still had a really great time. All 4 years spent at Georgia College and State University. And I'm happy to share some words of wisdom and let you guys know a bit about what's going on post-grad for me.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your time with college. So any clubs, any organizations, any particular classes you enjoyed, any particular professors?
So Georgia College was not my first choice, actually. I wanted to go to a school out of state, but money and other circumstances made me kind of rethink and decide to look at in-state schools. And it was maybe only a few weeks before I had to commit to a school that my mom was like, "Hey, let's go check out this open house in Atlanta for Georgia College. There's going to be some professors there, ambassadors. You can ask questions." And I was like, let's do it. I had already gotten into the school. So at that point, I was just deciding whether or not to go. And at that little reception, I met a few of the Georgia College professors, and one of which told me about a special program at Georgia College, GC and DC, and that was Georgia College's special internship in DC. And that got me really excited because I knew I wanted to pursue political science and potentially make my way to Washington, DC. And of course, an internship is the best way to get your foot in the door. And it was all about kind of being able to get those networking experiences. So going to Georgia College, getting the classroom and all of the academics, and then being able to do the internship was really something special for me. I enjoyed all the classes that I took. Shout out to Dr. Kennedy and Professor Sanders and a few other professors that I think have moved on after these few years, and the ones that are still here at Georgia College. Thank you so much for all of that you have instilled in me. And a little bit more about the extracurriculars that I did at Georgia College. I was a part of student government, which I really loved. I was a student senator for a couple years, and coming and seeing the real life Senate and House here in DC definitely made me realize that even Georgia College can be a little bit of a microcosm to our national federal government. And if you're on student government right now, just know that the work that you do is not in vain. You are making sure that students stay healthy and engaged on campus, and everything, all the legislation that you pass is very meaningful to students, faculty, and staff. I was also part of Young Democrats and the American Democracy Project. I led Georgia College's voter-friendly campus and their designation for several years, and was always kind of nicknamed by Dr. Jan Hoffman as Georgia College's super voter girl or something like that. And big passion for making sure that students were registered to vote and voting in elections, because even young people, their voices matter, especially in elections like Georgia's last few Senate elections, US Senate elections, where it has come down to only, those amount of votes, very close. So I had a great time, especially being at Georgia College. I didn't even look at bigger schools like UGA. I knew I wanted to go to a small school, and that I would be afforded more opportunities for to be in organizations, to be leadership in some of those organizations, and especially like I was talking about the GC and DC, that there wouldn't be maybe as much competition. Of course, lots of people did apply or can apply, but being able to do those opportunities at a smaller school and have that time with professors one-on-one was really something special.
Okay, so you did the GC to DC, and so you got your toes wet there. So then, what did you do upon graduation? And also, just tell us a little bit more about GC to DC.
Yeah, so GC and DC, I did my junior year, so in 2019. And funny enough, it was during the government shutdown, which right now in Congress, it is a potential for a looming government shutdown. Hopefully, things can kind of shift in the next week, but we might be having a little. I might be having a little backlash from my time interning. And it was great. I came with one other Georgia college student. She was working for a Republican House member, and we were both roommates. So we had to be able to get along as I was working with a Democrat. And we would have amazing discussions that most of the time we would agree with each other on different issues. And then we became great buddies and traveled around and toured DC together, did all the museums. So I was really lucky to be able to go with another Georgia college student. And I interned for Congressman David Scott. Really enjoyed working with the staff. I made some really great relationships and networking on the Hill. Of course, so I had another year after GC and DC as a senior, and I graduated in 2020. And during my time as a senior in college, I maintained those connections that I made on the Hill. Just kind of gave them an email every so often, every couple months. Hey, I am interested once I graduate in the job. Please keep me in mind, when things start coming available. But like I said, COVID-19 hit in 2020. So I ended up going home. I'm from Marietta, Georgia. And I was at home for a while for the 2020 election. I was the volunteer coordinator for a Georgia State House race. And I also was a campaign manager for a local county school board race. And I really enjoyed those campaign experiences, especially doing field work during a pandemic. You have to do a lot of problem solving and quick changes. Yeah, but we definitely did as much as we could. And I was excited that the state representative did get reelected. After November, after the election, I was kind of starting to look for other jobs. I was nannying, and in December, I got a call from the now chief of staff for Congressman David Scott. At the time of my internship, she was a legislative assistant. But she calls me up and says, "Hey, Ruby, I remember you from a couple years ago. You're an amazing intern. We have a staff assistant open position coming up. Would you like it?" So that was pretty much an amazing opportunity that landed in my lap. And I owe it definitely to Georgia College for getting me that internship where I was able to, show off all my skills and work really hard during that internship to make a long lasting impact that she, was able to remember me even 2 years later. And the interview went great with the congressman. He basically asked, "When can you get here?" And I said, "As soon as
Wonderful.
possible." And I came up late February of 2021 as staff assistant. So I have been with the congressman since 2021, kind of working my way up the ladder. I was promoted pretty quickly to include the title of legislative correspondent. So I handle the entire mail program for the congressman and all of the outgoing mail to our constituents. And then this year, at the beginning of 2023, they bumped me up to legislative aide. So now I have a few more responsibilities. So I'm handling a small portfolio for the congressman, including my passion, which is education policy for K through 12 and higher ed. And I'm also still doing the mail program. So writing a lot of policy letters going out to hundreds of constituents each day. It's a lot for sure.
Sounds like it. Okay, this last question, let's take it in two different directions. One, just general advice for current students, and then we'll do advice for anybody who's thinking about wanting to try to pursue a career in politics.
Yeah,
Just general advice first.
the biggest advice that I have for current students who are, pursuing whether it be political science or any other major, would be to definitely intern. If you are able to intern and do several different internships, I recommend doing it because that's the way you're going to learn if you like doing whatever it is, whether it be working for a member of Congress, maybe doing a campaign internship. I was able to learn, okay, campaigns, you have to be very flexible, but I'm a person that loves a schedule. So campaigns were not really for what my future looked like. But I also did the internship in DC, really loved it, fell in love with DC, and I would have never been able to really know which path I wanted to go on if I didn't do kind of go out of my comfort zone, move to the city, and get those experiences. So do as many internships as possible, or work in different industries arenas, and then figure out, okay, this is kind of something I would like to pursue, and make sure that you're making connections and networking with those folks because they're going to remember you potentially 2 years down the line and offer you a potential job because this job market that we're seeing, a lot of college students graduate from, it's not easy to find a job. And being able to have a resume where you can exemplify all these different skills, not just what you learn in the classroom, but transferable to the workplace, it's really going to set you up for success.
Well said. So any general advice for people thinking about, I want to work in politics or, in, government adjacent? Because I know it's definitely hard to do an internship, then do a lowly paid internship, and then here's a seasonal job, and then that real job's always just a couple steps away. A lot of people give up. Any just general advice?
I'd like to tell a lot of people, for me, it's not just about politics, it's about policy.
Mhm.
So in college, obviously, you're reading and doing all of this research. And what I found is that I really do like the back end of things, looking at policy and legislation, how it's crafted, how it goes through the legislative process, how it does get passed into law, and then it's interpreted by the executive branch, and then put into practice. And although, all of what's going on the news and the craziness of our political stratosphere is really what I like to do is come into the office, work on policy letters, work on legislation, have meetings with constituents, meeting with stakeholders. It's not all about that crazy partisan divide as you might think. And I have lots of friends on the other side of the aisle that are just like me, working in their members' offices and doing all the same stuff that I'm doing. And oftentimes, again, we agree on more things than you might think. So don't get discouraged when it comes to the political climate. And remember that for long term, you don't have to necessarily come and work for the federal government or the state government. You can go into nonprofit work. You can do lobbying for advocacy groups. You can do think tanks if you're really interested in research. And there's just a whole wide world out there that always you can connect back to politics. I always say that for everything. You can always connect it back to education and then to the government, how things are funded and initiatives pass through. So definitely if you're considering, political science degree, I also majored in, I got a second degree in rhetoric, so speech and communication. Those are two great ones that can lead you to a plethora of jobs.
Wonderful. Okay, final question. I like to ask people currently working in DC or in politics this. So from your vantage point, is it currently more West Wing, more House of Cards, or more Veep?
Ooh, a little mixture of everything, but not as much House of Cards,
Fortunately.
not as much of the cursing of Veep, luckily this week has been a little bit different from some members, but not as much of the joking. So more of the West Wing, I
Okay.
think, especially now um, that that Biden has kind of drawn things and made things a little less glamorous, that things have kind of turned back into the regular Dale politics. Like, we need to get this funded, we need to get this program started. That each episode kind of is kind of like each week on the Hill, how a new thing might pop up to be voted on. So you get a ton of calls just on that one bill. And then next week, no one like remembers what happened in the previous episode. It's a whole new week, and new issues to deal with as current events just shift. So does the work of the office.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Is there
Yeah,
anything we didn't talk about that we should have?
not that I can really think of, but I do miss Georgia College for sure. There are definitely days that I'm thinking about what I would have been doing at whatever time it is, whether it be going to Senate on Fridays or this past week or last week, I think it was Constitution Week and National Voter Registration Day. And, the tabling that I would be doing to get students registered to vote. It was supposed to happen right before the pandemic, right after our spring break, when we were going to come back from spring break, but never did. We were going to do the American Democracy Project. It was all ready to go. The vote, and have baby goats come to campus to get out the vote,
Oh,
get the
that's
vote.
fun.
Because of course it's Milledgeville. We've got goats in the area, and baby goats were just born. So I really hope students continue doing really fun things like that, that you wouldn't be able to do any other time in your life. Um, I would love to see it on campus here at the Capitol, some goats, but I haven't yet. So do it now. Do it in college. Have a good time.
Well, if you're ever back in town, we'd love to have you come do a guest lecture.
Yeah, certainly.